Interested in doing business with the government?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll jump right in and get started. And Terry, I see your question. I'll be with you in just a second. All right. So social disadvantage. So social disadvantage is it's race-based. It's whatever your nationality is. It's whatever your race is, pretty much. All right. We all know, like I have in green, you must be a U.S. citizen. But in addition to that, to be deemed automatically to be deemed socially disadvantaged, you must fit into one of these categories. All right. If you do not fit into one of these categories for application purposes, you would need to prove what they call I am socially disadvantaged. I'm a white woman. My business is in construction, which is white male dominated. I have a story to tell. You're going to write that up as a narrative and provide any type of supporting documentation, incidents, anything that has occurred to show that you've been discriminated against personally, and that has negatively affected you being able to run your business effectively and profitably. Then yes, it is possible for you to still get into the 8A program. There are thousands of white women and men and the 8A program. It is not for Black people. It is not for Hispanic people. That's Congress does not have a program of that type. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've probably heard it all from it. It's an affirmative action program, and it's this, that, and the third. It has never been any of those things. It's for any majority owner on whom eligibility is based that can prove social disadvantage. But notice what I said earlier. I've been personally discriminated against, and this is how it has negatively affected me running my business. Notice the connection. So it cannot be, I personally have been discriminated against. It started in elementary school and it went through high school. That won't work. Not if that's all you have. It must be a direct connection to the running and operating of your business. It cannot all just be personal. All right. And during the all-day class, I actually provide a little bit more information about that, along with some examples of and samples of different things that other people have spoken about during their journey of proving social disadvantage. So in addition to every applicant being socially disadvantaged, you must also be economically disadvantaged. This is not an either or. You must meet both requirements. So let's take a look and see what the definition of economic disadvantage is. It's all about your assets minus your liabilities. It's your personal net worth. That's what being economically disadvantaged is in SBA's mindset. So you would take every asset you have, total it up. Take every liability you have, do the same. The difference between those two numbers is your personal net worth. What SBA does allow for, which is at the bottom of the slide, is for you to not include three things. So if your question is, well, can I include this? Don't go by the list of what you can or cannot include, can include. Go by what you cannot. So that means if I don't need to include equity in my primary residence, equity in my business, and funds that are in my retirement account, as long as the prepayment penalty for early withdrawal is 10% or more, these are my only three exclusions. That means everything else is included. So I get these really long emails and questions. Well, is this included? Is that, let's not go by that list is too long. Let's look at what you don't need to include. And that means if it's not one of these three things, everything else is included no matter what it is. Now, we'll give you a couple exceptions. One, any asset that's in your spouse's name, that is your spouse's, or you two are sharing that liability, you're sharing that asset, you would divide that in half. So you wouldn't carry the whole thing. You would carry only half of what that asset is or what that liability is. So just divide it in half. And then also when you have things like 529 college plans for your kids, it's in their name, but your name's on there too. Those are not included either. But pretty much everything else is included. So again, I get that question a lot of, wanting this long laundry list of, what can be included and what can't. Just keep in mind, you really only get three exclusions. If you're married, you get to divide those assets and liabilities in half, which will further reduce your personal net worth. And the limit is $750,000. It cannot exceed $750,000 after the three exclusions. All right. And let me go over to Terry's question. If I can pull it over here. What about unemployment insurance? Does that impact your ability to apply for 8A if you collect unemployment? Unemployment means at some point you were employed. So now you're not employed. So it goes to the fact that, do you still have a job? If you do, that's outside employment, it's strictly prohibited. You cannot apply for 8A. Another scenario, you were employed, you were laid off, whatever the case may be. Now you are receiving unemployment, and I don't currently work anyplace else. But I have my business and I'm now running it on a full-time basis. From the date of the employment ending, and between that date and when you go to actually apply for your 8A, my suggestion was wait about 8 months. And you mentioned earlier, you've been in business for about 1 year. So during that year, not sure if you were employed or not employed, it sounds like you were. So you had outside employment. You cannot apply for 8A at this time. It would not be a good idea. It would not make for a strong application. So I would wait. But again, I would start from the date of your unemployment and wait about 8 months before you apply for 8A. Then I have someone else that is putting the contact here, a question here. Is there a cap on adjusted gross income? Not really. I know what you mean by that, and let's get to that right now. So that's actually a really good question. It's my next slide, as a matter of fact. So part of the economic disadvantage is that it's 3-tier. So one is your personal net worth, your assets minus your liabilities cannot exceed 750. We have 2 other things here. Your personal income, the average over 3 years, cannot exceed $350,000. This is what I think you mean by the cap on adjusted gross income. They take a 3-year average. They're going to take your total compensation from all sources for the past 3 years. So we're now in 2021. 2020 taxes have not been filed yet. Most accountants don't even have the software to even complete the return yet. So in this case, you would take 17, 18, and 19. Total compensation for each of those years, add them together, divide by 3. That average cannot exceed $350,000. All right. And there are no exceptions to these. So if you're even $1 over, you are deemed not economically disadvantaged, and you must meet all 3. So in addition to the average 350, the average compensation over 3 years not exceeding 350, you also, your personal net worth cannot exceed $750,000, and your total assets cannot exceed 6 million. This does include the equity in your business. So for calculating your personal net worth, which is that $750,000 number, the equity in the business is not included. But when calculating total assets, it is included. So if your business is doing really well, you own a good amount, there's equity, that equity attaches over to you personally as the owner, you will need to claim that as part of your asset. And again, the total for that is 6 million. These caps are to enter the program, as well as after you enter the program, same limit. The only thing that will change is the personal income. They'll put you as an 8A participant on a tier. If your business makes $1 million, your compensation can be this. If your business makes up to 2 million, your compensation. So that's the only thing that will change, to give you as the owner opportunity to grow as your firm does well. All right. And I mentioned this before about being at the bottom, about having your spouse's assets and liabilities, just pretty much divide them in half. You claim half, they claim half. All right. These are some of the benefits. I touched on this just briefly about the 4 million. So the cap, this is the benefit of the 8A program, why most firms go for 8A, which is they're able to win sole source set aside contracts under the 8A program, as long as the contracting officer keeps the dollar value base, which is year 1. That's what the year 1 is called. It's called your base year plus all option years. Cannot exceed 4 million for services and 7 million for manufacturing. That's the biggest benefit of why companies go for 8A certification. All right. And then another benefit is the ability to joint venture. As an 8A firm, large business wants to joint venture with you. A lot of times they'll, look in SAM and find 8A firms, like just pretty much just looking at what the full list looks like and then reaching out. So they typically do that with firms that are currently 8A certified. It's just the end all to be all of certifications. Like if you're going to get a certification, if you qualify, 8A is the one, but only get the 8A when you're ready. Why? Because there's a time limit. You only get 9 years. Okay? Things to remember. One, not more than 70% of your firm's revenues can be generated from one customer. Just like that, no outside employment. This rule is hard and steadfast. There is no waiver. If you have 2 clients and you run the percentages between the 2 and one of those clients, you've generated more revenue than the other, and that number happens to be over 70%, you do not qualify for 8A certification. 8A wants you to be diversified when you enter the program and to maintain that throughout the term of the program. They do not allow firms in the program with 1 client. That just cannot happen. All right, so just keep that in mind, not more than 70%. Stay as far away from 70% as you can. And to be honest with you, 8A or not, you should do that anyway. You should not be having all of your eggs in one basket. That is just not smart. Because if anything ever happens with that one client, what will you do? Next is your total firms from all sources generated under your primary code, as indicated on your SAM profile. Business can't be operating at a loss during the past 3 years or in current interim. 2020 just ended, so we're now in interim 2021. So let's say you were going to apply for 8A at this particular time. Your financials are good, you've made lots of money, but when I look at that very bottom number, you've got a negative net income. You cannot be operating at a loss and get into the 8A program, irregardless of what that unusual circumstance was during that year, which made your income be negative. SBA won't care, because what they say to that is, if you're at a negative net income, I allow you into the 8A program. How will you fund the contract? You can't fund the contract when your financials tell me you have $0. You don't have a line of credit. You don't have a bank loan. You've got nothing. But yet you expect me to, they won't do it. So that's another one of those hard and steadfast rules. And then third is we've kind of, beat this dead horse, which is the outside employment. You can't have it. It's just simple as that. I've been packaging 8A applications since 1989. I have never been able to get an application approved where the applicant had outside employment. And that's a never. I've never been able to get one through. All right. Now I did put over here as a little extra, evenings and weekends. So if your outside employment is evenings, which is after the government is in operation, that means they're 9 to 5, 6 to 3, government's closed, but you work a night job and you might work this job maybe on the weekends only, you might have a shot. Still difficult because it's still outside employment, but you would really need to explain that. Next is you can't be delinquent on any personal or business debt. You need to be on some type of payment arrangement, something. Judgments, liens, bankruptcies, levies against you, that goes to character, and 8A won't let you in. Like, character is extremely important to them. It is an eligibility requirement that the applicant on whom eligibility is based possesses good character. So it's really important that you have that. Next is there will be an FBI background investigation conducted on the applicant on whom eligibility is based. So if I'm packaging your application, I'll ask you very direct questions. Have you ever been convicted of anything other than a minor traffic violation? And you lie to me, it won't matter. Because once I submit that application to SBA, they're going to pull a FBI background report on you from the day you were born up until the date that they were asked to pull the report. Everything in between, things that have been expunged, things that have been removed. This is an all-inclusive report. Everything populates. So if you're outsourcing and hiring a company to package your 8A application for you, you need to understand that whether you are honest with that consultant or not, it's going to pop up on the FBI report. So you want to always just get those things out in the open, and you want to inform SBA of those situations and provide all documentation relating to them with the application. It's really important that you do that. You must be able to show, yes, I've had some challenges in the past. I've since overcome them. These situations were so long ago. Tell your story, but you'll need to do that. But if you leave something out, if you do not mention this situation that you were told was expunged, and when you pull the report, it doesn't even show up anymore, and you think you're going to get away with that, it's not going to work. It will pop up on the report. It'll go against you for character with your 8A application. And that's pretty much unfixable because you didn't disclose it initially. This is a full disclosure application. Leave nothing out, no matter how small. It's better for you to tell them than them to find out and question you as to why you did not inform them originally. This is just one of those certifications. All right, next, the more customers you have, the better. This is a volumes game. SBA would rather you have 5 small clients than 2 large or 3 large. They want you to diversify. So I always say, go after every contract opportunity that you can, no matter how small, as long as you're not going to lose money. If you're not going to, even if you're going to just break even, you need those contracts to do what? To leverage them collectively to win the next contract. So you want to go for it. All right. So again, the more the better. All personal and business tax liability must be paid or must be on a payment arrangement. If any of your tax returns and part of the application, you'll be providing last 3 years of business tax returns, last 3 years of personal, minimum is 2 years each. If any of those years show money owed to the IRS, you'll need to provide proof of that payment arrangement along with copies of all payments made to date. So SB is very strict about this. This is a federal program. They cannot allow you to federally owe money or be delinquent. I'm sorry, you can owe money as long as you are in a payment arrangement to pay the IRS back, to pay the federal government back. But if you're just not paying and you're delinquent and they're levying, it just won't work. All right. And then lastly, if your spouse is involved in the business, they will take a deeper dive into what their role is. But keep in mind, inform your spouse if you're married that I'm applying for 8A. Part of the application process is all spouses must disclose every single asset and liability that they have. So just like you have to disclose it, so does your spouse, even if they have nothing at all to do with the business. So that's a conversation you want to have with your significant other prior to going down this road. So if your spouse refuses to provide their information and you're not legally separated or divorced, you will not be able to apply for 8A. Your spouse is involved in the personal net worth section of this application. They want to see what their assets and liabilities look like, take a look at yours, and they want to make sure that there's no transferring from you to them in order for you to lower your personal net worth. There's no way for them to make that determination, they mean in SBA, unless you disclose your spouse's financial information. Yes, I know they have nothing to do with the business. They have no ownership. They don't even know what's going on. It doesn't matter. Simply because they're a spouse, they must disclose. All right. Everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.